Hello, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Kunle. Good morning, Mr. Okechukwu.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of the ESQ Practical Lawyers Academy webinar
Morning.
series. Good morning. My name is Chidima Agu, and I'm a research and development staff of ESQ Training Limited. At the ESQ Training Limited, our mission is to expand the frontiers of continuous professional learning. We offer courses and training across various areas of practice, which we have categorized into academies like Litigation and Other Disputes Resolution Academy, Intellectual Property Law Academy, Energy, Oil and Gas Academy, Capital Projects Academy, Capital Markets Academy, Tax Academy, and amongst others. We have tagged this webinar series the Launch Our Webinar Series, as they are slated to hold at 1 p.m. during lunch break. They would hold 3 times every week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And we hold on Fridays by 11 a.m. to accommodate our Muslim participants. And after every session, we'll provide the resources in easily accessible format for everyone who is interested. Currently, registration is still ongoing for our training on PAR. It is a 12-week virtual distance learning course titled The Dynamics of Power Contract Regulation, Contract Negotiation, Documentation, and Project Financing. And it commenced yesterday, it commenced on the 16th, sorry, and you can still register. To get more information, please send a mail to o.solanke@esq-law.com. So the topic for today's webinar is on hot immigration issues faced by HR professionals, and our seasoned facilitators will advise professionals on the new industry trends and skills to flow into the new normal. On the topics of today, we'll be looking at understanding the law regulating employment of foreign experts, identifying hot immigration issues facing HR professionals, outlining the tips for dealing with immigration officers as HR professional of a company employing foreign expatriates, identifying how to advertise management on immigration issues arising from employment, and many others. We are privileged this morning to connect with our panel of experts, and if you have any question while this webinar is ongoing, please type them in the Q&A session or raise your hand. It is a great delight that I introduce our chair moderator of today's webinar. His name is Kunle Obebe. Mr. Kunle Obebe is recognized as one of the foremost Nigerian lawyers in immigration, employment, and labor matters, and is frequently sought after as local counsel for large international companies. He's a partner at Bloomfield Law Practice. He's a certified global mobility specialist and a regular speaker at the Nigerian and international conferences seminars on regulatory compliance and emerging corporate immigration issues in Nigeria. He's also a member of Executive Leadership Committee of the Worldwide EIC, the Workforce Mobility Association. He has, since 2009, he has been recognized in Who's the Who Legal Nigeria, and he's highly knowledgeable in commercial litigation and arbitration attacks. A managing partner and chair of the firm's dispute resolution, immigration and tax employment labor practice groups. Mr. Kunle, thank you for being with us today. And it is with this I leave you to moderate this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Chidima, for the kind introduction. I would want to leave Daniel. First of all, introduce Daniel. I'd like Daniel to just do a brief introduction of himself. Then after that, Okechukwu will also do that as well.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, this is Daniel Mitibemu. I'm an immigration lawyer here in the UK. Can you still hear me?
Yes,
Yes, we can.
hear you clearly.
Okay, yeah, I'm an immigration lawyer here in the UK, and I've been practicing for over 10 years now in the UK immigration law. I specialize in every aspect of immigration, name whatever route. That's my area of specialty. And it's actually a delight for me to be part of the panel today, and I'm hoping to have a good time with you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Daniel. Okechukwu, please, can you just introduce yourself?
Thank you very much. My name is Okechukwu. Hope I can be heard.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, my name is Okechukwu. I work with GLIS and Co. I'm happy to be on the panel this morning. I also advise clients. I advise clients on foreign direct investments, and immigration, even though I spend much of my time, or I would say 80% of my time, I do more of energy and oil and gas. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think based on the topic that was given, hot issues, I think the hottest issue that we are currently dealing with is the pandemic. And I just want to have an idea of how, with your conversations with HR professionals, how they've been handling this the pandemic with their expat employees. Okay, Chukwu, you want to kick off on that?
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, yeah, you're very correct to say that maybe the hot issue now is the COVID-19. And the much I can say for a number of clients who I advise currently, I know for most of them, if I may say, most of what I've seen is, for some of these expatriates, a lot of them had to leave the country. I mean, before the lockdown, a lot of them had to leave. And for the few ones who are around, work, just as expected, work has been very slow. But again, that doesn't, take away the fact that there are still, the requirements, the necessary filings and returns which are required to make in law. The law still requires that you do those. And I also know that there are people, people are still coming in, especially since the relaxation of the lockdown. Foreigners, expatriates are still coming in. There's been renewal of work permits and all those. So I think that is the situation as it is. Not much has changed. Not much has changed, if I may say.
Yeah, thank you so much. Daniel, what have you seen with regards to the pandemic? You mentioned the fact that you cover a lot of areas with regards to immigration. So what have you seen? So not just corporate, I know you would also deal with individual immigration. And I know the UK has been changing regularly. I don't know how you guys keep up with the regulation changes. Can you just give us a brief overview of what you have been seeing?
Okay, it's actually been very interesting due to the pandemic, because before the pandemic, a lot of foreign employees were meant to come into the UK and to start their employment, because once your visa is issued, you'll be given 30 days to come into the UK. So the pandemic actually affected a lot of them. They were unable to come into the UK and they had to be working from home. Of course, let's say, for instance, they're in Nigeria, okay? And apart from that, they had to now submit another application for the replacement of the vignet that they have, their passport, which has already expired, because the pandemic lasted for here in the UK, even we are still on national lockdown. It was around April, May, thereabout last year that they released, they opened the border a bit for people to come into the UK. So about that time, a lot of people, vignet had already expired. Okay, so it was actually so difficult, number one, for the employers themselves, because they wanted the employees to be on ground, to be doing the work. Okay, so we had to, in a way, be calling on the Home Office to make an exception for these guys, because if you're unable to come into the UK within the time frame, your visa will be cancelled automatically, because you are meant to start work at the time that you are meant to do that. Okay. So another thing that we experienced as a result of the COVID-19 or the lockdown is that the individuals themselves, okay, they were panicking. Okay, they were thinking that the employers will change their mind, maybe get someone else to fill in the gap. To take up the employment. So, but with wisdom, we're able to manage that process, and it's been interesting since. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. Another thing is the issue of compliance, because I know that because of the pandemic, the fact that a number of individuals had to travel within a very short period due to the pandemic. How have you been advising your clients with regards to compliance, okay, Chukwu? I know you mentioned that things are starting to return back to normal with the lifting of the restrictions in Nigeria. However, how have you been advising your clients with regards to compliance?
Thank you. I think basically from the compliance perspective, again, unlike some other sectors of the economy, like in the banking sector, where you have the regulators basically come up with issues or regulations with respect to, as it affects their sector because of the changes that has been brought because of the COVID-19. I would say, coming to the immigration, apart from the compliance, the COVID test, the test which employees that, for those who are coming into Nigeria within the period, there's been some, there are requirements to conduct tests, isolate 14 days and stuff like that. But the basic compliance as it relates to expatriates working to Nigeria, namely tax remittances, filing of immigration returns, clients still do that. Clients still do that because the immigration service is still functional, up and functional, even though only very senior staff, come to office, but they are still very functional. So in terms of compliances, yes, they are still doing that. With respect to tax, what has happened is that the states, because of businesses, the businesses having gone down within, a lot of businesses having been affected. So issue of taxes, some states and even the Federal Inland Revenue has granted extension to companies, extension of time within which to file the relevant tax remittances. But in terms of the immigration returns, expatriate returns and WP returns, which employers are required to file, we've not heard anything from the NIS, that's the Nigerian Immigration Service, either the granting extension or other. So as it stands, we still advise clients, file your monthly returns, file your monthly returns at the NIS, to the NIS, file your taxes. So not really much has changed, as I said earlier.
So with regards to the, Okechukwu, still with you. So with regards to the work from home policy that a lot of companies are currently practicing because of the pandemic, what tips would you have for companies that have expats that are still in the country but have to work from home? Okechukwu. Yeah, I think he froze there. We'll probably give him some time to come back. If I can go back to you, Daniel,
Okay.
The issue of compliance, that's with regards to the various filings that you have to do in the UK. We're looking at it now from a perspective of Nigerians coming to the UK. What advice would you give? What are the things that you feel that they need to watch out for? And what are the things that they may be little things, but they are things that, as you know, would affect the application at the end of the day?
If I understand your question clearly, I'll speak from the perspective of the employer, because the responsibility actually lies with the employer, because the employer is the sponsor of the overseas worker coming from Nigeria. Okay. And there are statutory requirements and responsibilities which they need to fulfill. Okay. Prior to the pandemic, working from home wasn't popular because the employee is actually meant to be physically present in the office building, because the home office compliance officer can turn up at your office unannounced to check whether the employee is working there or not. But because of the pandemic, a lot of the companies, they had to come up with systems whereby they can monitor that their employees are actually working. Okay, what some of my clients, what they've done is to put in a system whereby their employee can log on. Maybe let's say the start time for their work is 9 a.m. Okay, there will be a clocking in time. Okay, and there will be a way for them to monitor their activities throughout the day. And these are the things they report to the sponsorship department of the Home Office. Okay, to confirm that, okay, this employee is actually, or the migrant is being monitored and they are fulfilling their necessary requirements. So for someone coming from Nigeria to the UK on work platform, what I would advise, because it's a different system, okay, what I would advise them to do is to make sure that they follow the guidance of their employers, because yes, you can say you're working from home and spending some time watching Netflix and all that, but you need to fulfill that requirement, because if that is not, your visa will be curtailed.
So the issue of clocking in and clocking out now, is that a regulation or it's a company policy that a lot of companies follow?
It is not a regulation, but it's a company policy, okay, that needed to, it's like a contingency plan. That wasn't there prior to pandemic, because prior to pandemic, you are meant to be physically present in the office building. Right? Because the home office, they carry out unannounced audits. All right. At the moment now, they can ask the company to email them records of employment activities of an individual. And how would they prove that? Yes, they can submit reports of maybe project delivered by the individual, but they want to see how have they been able to manage the 9 to 5 activities of the individual. So clocking in and out, maybe proof of attending team meetings, those are things that will help.
Well, that's quite interesting, because it's something I think we can also, I think companies can also look at applying here, particularly when you have to prove that an employee, an expatriate employee is working from home. You mentioned the issue of audit. Okay, Chuku, I know you would have been called a number of times that immigration is currently at your client's office. What do you advise with regards to audits when audits happen? What is your advice to your client?
Well, as much as possible, for just as Daniel mentioned, in the UK, usually in Nigeria is also unannounced, but most times it's physical audits. So you have the immigration guys bump into the office just to be sure that you don't have some foreigners working who do not have the relevant, approvals or the relevant permits needed to work. So usually for clients who are up to date, I mean, usually we advise our clients, try and make sure you're up to date with your filings. Your filings of your returns with the immigration service. I mean, as much as you do that, there's little or nothing to really fear. Really or nothing to fear. Really. But we've not, with the COVID, and just as mentioned, which is still in Nigeria, a lot of offices people are still working from home. I'm sure that also would have impacted the issue of the physical audit, because we've not yet gone so much of a method to be able to audit or send such information online. So usually the audit by the immigration is done physically. And I think that would have been impacted by the COVID, considering that a lot of offices are closed now, and even those open, the operations are more or less skeletal.
So the funny thing is, I still had a couple of clients that were audited, physical audits during the pandemic. Yes. So in a sense, there are still audits ongoing. What I usually advise clients is that they have a record, a file in the office, which has all the work permits, all the monthly returns, all the filings that they've done. So that is kept at the front desk. So anybody comes in at any time, they can just show them that information. And they also keep a record of all audits that are carried out. So you have cases where companies are audited almost once every quarter, which may seem strange, but if you don't keep a record of how many times they've been to your office, you'll be surprised that the immigration service will continue to do that. So another thing that we are seeing with the pandemic is the fact that there's been a lot of termination of employment. That includes with expatriates as well. So from your end, Daniel, how have the companies you've been advising, how have they been able to cope with that? Because you bring in, I know how difficult it is to get a work permit in the UK, and you now find out that maybe the position has become redundant and they have to let the person go. What are the things that the company needs to do to be able to do that?
Okay, well, fortunately, in the UK here during the pandemic, the government was able to assist the companies in the sense that employees were put on furlough, whereby they were given the government was paying 80% of their salary. Okay, so there wasn't really too much of redundancy. So because the employers know that the employee's status in the UK is tied to that employment. So once they are made redundant or terminated, means that their visa ends. Okay, so what majority of the companies, what they, my clients, what they've been able to do is to put their employees on follow. Okay, meaning that the government has actually been paying their salary, paying 80% salary for all this. And in fact, it was meant to have ended last year August, but it's been postponed to I think April this year, but depending on how the situation of things with this COVID unfolds. But yeah, so far here in the UK, it's really been manageable.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's interesting. I heard about that, the issue of the follow, and it sounded really alien to me. But okay, Chiku, in Nigeria, how have your clients been coping with employees, expat employees that they need to terminate their employment? Well, what are the steps that you advise them to take?
Well, it's actually been a very difficult one for employers having to terminate expatriates, because when you look at the cost of bringing them in, the procedure, getting the expatriate quota, the high cost of the setback, and the fact that when you terminate, it's more like you're going to start the whole process all over again. So usually we advise clients, it is absolutely necessary that you have to terminate the employment. Usually two options. If you must terminate, make sure it's in accordance with the contract of employment. Look at what the contract of employment provides for, and then as much as possible, make sure the termination, the appropriate notices they are given, and they are necessary. The Nigerian law, we still apply the common law rule, even though there have been counter decisions that affect recently, which is that the employer can always hire and fire. Meaning you can always terminate even for reason or for no reason at all, even though that has been questioned in recent decisions of the National Industrial Court. But our advice usually for clients is the contract for skilled labor in Nigeria, employment contract is usually, engagement is usually regulated by your contract, because the Labor Act doesn't apply to such employees. So what we usually advise clients is engage your clients. Everything is actually contractual. If you must terminate, make sure it's in line with the contract. If you also want to contemplate or you want alternative arrangements, always make sure this is agreed, properly documented with the expatriates, right? But more or less, whatever you are doing, make sure it is contractual. If you are terminating in accordance with the contract. If you want to apply, because in most cases, nobody anticipated or saw the COVID-19 and the pandemic coming. Nobody saw it coming. And I've not seen a contract, before now that has provision for force majeure, employment contracts with force majeure clause that contemplates the COVID-19 scenario. So usually, as I said earlier, the advice for clients is you must terminate in accordance with the contract. Otherwise, you may have to engage your clients, the employees, and then renegotiate the terms of the engagement. And I think that has worked for a number of them, really.
Okay, that's interesting, because if you look at it from the perspective that it's so another conundrum that I have seen is the fact that with our own work permit process, you have to have a local employment contract, but with some companies, these employees are nomads, which means that they travel everywhere. They've been to various jurisdictions, so they have a global contract. So if you are terminating their employment contract in Nigeria, does it affect their global contract? It's an issue that I've raised with a couple of other immigration lawyers, and we just don't seem to know how we resolve it. Because most times what would happen is, not most times, every time, to get a work permit, you need a local employment contract, which is part of the requirements for a long-term work permit. So it's how you are now able to resolve that. Would you now look at their global employment contract to terminate their employment? Or will it be the local contract that will now be terminated, and how you now take it from there? Daniel, what about short-term work permits? I don't know whether you have short-term work permits in the UK. Someone that just wants to come in for maybe 3 to 6 months. How has that been?
Yes. We do have the short-term work permit, and it's actually called the paid engagement visa. Okay, so that you can come into the UK for 3 months, 6 months, just to consult. Okay, on a short-term basis for a company. Okay, and also you can also want to do a 1 year visa, which is the skilled worker visa. Now, you know, initially we had the tier 2 general visa, but that was replaced with the skilled worker visa that actually started this January. Okay, so if someone is coming on a short-term visa for the purpose of employment, they've got two options. Is either to go through the paid engagement route. Okay, just for instance, yourself now, Kunle, you can decide to say you want to come and consult for a global organization here in the UK, maybe for 2 or 3 months. Okay, so what you need is paid engagement visa, which will allow you to come in, okay, to work for that particular company alone. All right. So you don't necessarily have, because I hear you talking about global contract and all that. Here we don't really practice that. Your contract is tied to one company. Okay. So if your contract is terminated, you need to go and look for another employer. That will be your visa. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I don't know. Okay, Chuku, with short-term work authorization, that's the temporary work permit. What experiences have you had with the temporary work permit when you're advising your clients? Have there been any issues with regards to that?
I mean, with regards to, if I get you right, the termination of sorts.
Yes, termination and just a general, any other general issue that you've had. I know. Okay, so let me give you a bit of let's look at it from another perspective. The issue of the Nigerian Content Development Monitoring Board, that you need to get a pre-approval from them before you bring in workers in the oil and gas industry. I don't know whether you've had any issues with the local content board.
Okay, with respect to that, I mean, even beyond the local content, but okay, talking about the temporary work arrangement, which is covered by the TWP, usually for, okay, so the process, in terms of determination, I can't really, because usually it's a fixed period, except where the employer wants to extend, or the work, because the regulation actually allows you to extend the period, usually for 3 months. With the new visa policy now, you actually could have temporary work permit that also allows you to actually travel in and out of Nigeria, and for up to an extended period, initial period of 6 months, and you can even get it extended up to 2 years. So in terms of, I can't really think of any peculiar, I mean, at the moment, think of any peculiar challenge that you may have to face. But with the national content, I mean, the local content board for the oil and gas sector, of course, the requirements, you have to get the approval, right? And also, the only challenge which the COVID has created, just as we mentioned earlier, is the fact that for some employers who they want to terminate at this time, considering the rigors involved in getting this approval, and also the reports, because when you are engaging them, you are also taking immigration responsibility. The rigors involved getting approvals for those in the oil and gas sector, the local content board. I mean, you don't want to go through a lot of those. But if really it is what you think is financially the best for the company, why not? Again, I can't think of a very much of a peculiar challenge for those with the temporary work permits.
Yeah, so from what I have seen is the fact that the time it takes to obtain the local content board approval has quite increased. It used to be about a week or 2 weeks to get the approval, the pre-approval before, but it's now about maybe 2 to 3 months or even longer. And you can now imagine an issue that arises on an oil rig that you need to fly in engineers to come in and resolve. So that has really slowed down the process of obtaining temporary work permits in the oil and gas industry. Yeah. So apart from that, I don't know whether you have any tips with regards to. I know we talked about audits, but I know something that a lot of HR officials, HR officers face in Nigeria. I don't know if you have like a step-by-step guide, because as you're aware, as you mentioned, it's unannounced, and it's something that they tend to panic. At least I've had a lot of clients that panic when this happens. So what are the tips you can give them? Just like based on the experience you have, what are the tips you can give them? Then Daniel, I'm going to come back to you as well, because I know the one that happens in the UK, it gets a bit serious, and a lot of things happen when it starts. So, okay, Chuku, you want to go ahead? Just general tips, because you are speaking
to that. If I may, I mean, on the last question you asked before this, in terms of the TW, I think the peculiarity, I mean, the delays in getting the approvals is not just peculiar to the TWP. I didn't get the question from that. I mean, so even with respect to for people who are even, I mean, applying for fresh quotas or having to renew quotas, recently the timeline, maybe not up to the, I mean, the timeline has also, unlike the usual 90, 180, 2-3 months interval you had, I mean, we had before now, the period also seems to be extended. I mean, it takes longer now. It takes much longer now. And I think it's not just peculiar to the TWP applicants, but that is by the way. Now, coming to audits and for HR practitioners, I think you've already mentioned something which I think is very important, and I also emphasize for clients. Have your filings, have your records, have very detailed filings of all your remittances, especially your tax remittances, filings at the with the Nigerian Immigration Service. Make sure you have your record up to date, and as much as possible, make sure you file within the time. Make sure you file within the time. Make sure you file within the time. As I do tell clients, as much as you comply with the terms of your engagement. Okay, another issue which we often see come up is part of the requirement for companies engaging an expatriate is that you need to have locals understanding the person. You need to have locals understanding the person. So make sure you have the details of each expatriate, who are those understanding. I mean, for every record you have in your filings or your file with the NIS, make sure you also have similar documents in your own file. Even in terms of for those who are, I mean, for employees who come in under SEPA, make sure you have your SEPA card, I mean, with you on the go at every point in time. And the company also keep copies of all this. So to make sure you are not at the mercy of anybody having to start camping around. Yes, I agree. I mean, HR practitioners and employers generally seem to panic once they hear about immigration coming to visit them or once they see them. So, but really, if you're up to date with your filings and you have your records up to date, I'm not sure there's really much to panic about. And then in terms of your taxes, also make sure you're up to date with the tax remittance for the expatriate, because that also seems to be at the other area where I noticed for clients, they also seem to have issues with the tax authorities in terms of payments and, you know, some tax, you hear from some state tax authorities saying there's underpayment and all that. So make sure you have your records up to date so you're able to, you know, answer the relevant authorities once the need comes up. And for those in the oil and gas sector too, get the relevant, file the necessary returns also, which you're supposed to file at the local content. Make sure you keep your copies, because actually it comes with very steep penalties. And even in the power sector too, there's also the requirement, even though it's not as strict as we'll have for the oil and gas sector. But NEC also has its own local content requirement. So as much as possible, the fact that they've not raised the hammer doesn't mean you should, you know, let your guards loose. No, you need to do all you're supposed to do. I mean, make sure you're timely with your filings and you do not run foul. But really, if you're up to date with your filings and do what you're required to do, I don't see why you should panic or should be worried with your regulator coming for the thing. Yeah, and as much as possible, if I may add also, get advice. I mean, for the HR person, I mean, where you are in doubt, always engage your lawyers or engage other practitioners who will also share, I mean, experience with you. Thank you.
Yeah, that you left the best for last. Always engage your local counsel or your lawyer to advise on that. Daniel, I'm sure you've received these frantic calls from your employers. What do you tell them? What are the tips you give to them?
Okay, I'll start by saying that here in the UK, you only have the Home Office audits in two instances. Number one, if you are a if you hold the, as an employer, if you hold the home office sponsorship license, okay, the sponsorship license is what enables a company here in the UK or an employer to bring in a foreigner. Okay, without the sponsorship license, you cannot employ any foreigner. Okay, another way whereby you have an audit is where even if you are not, even if you do not have the sponsorship license, if the home office gets information that maybe you are employing people illegally, okay, you get this in the people working in the restaurant, working in the industries, okay, maybe like laborers and all that, they will just come unannounced. Okay, now when they have the audit, what they are coming to see, okay, now I'll be talking about the company that has the sponsorship license. So when they come in for the audit, what the home office want to see is the record, just as Shuku mentioned. What they're after is the record. So they want to see, number one, how you've been able to monitor the activities of your employees. They want to see, number one, okay, are they coming to work regularly? If they are not, because on that same day, they will interview the employee as well to understand whether the employee, well, it wasn't an arranged employment. So they want to know whether the employee knows what they are doing, okay? Because they know that some employers that are actually employing people in order to assist them to stay in the UK without, necessarily working for them genuinely, okay? So they want to see that the employers that are actually paying them the right salary, okay? There's so many dramas, Kunle. I don't want to go into too much details because you find out that the employee at the point of, the employers at the point of submitting an application for the employee, this, let's say the salary will be, let's say, £40,000, but in reality, they're actually paying the employee £20,000. Okay, so when they come for audit, they want to see copies of the pay slips. They want to see your bank statement, that's your corporate bank statement, showing that you've actually been paying them the amount you mentioned at the application stage. They also want to see your entire payroll, okay? They also want to see your HR policy. They want to see your that you have the file that shows, okay, the start date of the employee's visa and the end date of their visa, okay? They also want to see that you have a system in place that will trigger you or that will prompt you about the expiration of their visa, because most times they want you to have let's say an HR system in place, not just the fact that you have a file somewhere. You must have an IT system like Sage HR here. That's what I recommend to most of my clients. So that will prompt you about 3 months or 6 months to the expiration of your client's passport or their visa, saying that, okay, they need to go and renew now. So those are the things they want to see. If you're unable to provide that on the spot, yes, they will give you, the grace to provide the necessary information within 10 working days. And if you do not, they will curtail the license that you have, okay? And they will suspend the license. And once the license is suspended, automatically, the employee's visa will also be curtailed. What I mean by curtailed is they're not going to terminate the visa, but they will curtail it for a period of 60 days. So within that 60 days, the employee needs to look for another employer within the UK. And if they're unable to do that, they need to leave the UK. So that's why, coming back to your global employment contract that you mentioned, okay, you only have one contract, which ties you to that organization. Once you're done with that organization, you need to look for another company that will sponsor your visa, and you have another employment contract. Okay, and if they discover that the person is being employed illegally, that's a potential 2 years imprisonment for the director of the company. Okay, I've said, but most times what they do is they will fine you maybe about £15,000, depending on the number of employees. So imagine you have 5 employees working illegally. That's 5 times 15.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of fine to be paid by the employer. Okay. Wow. So what I always advise my clients is this, okay? Make sure you have the necessary documentation and the necessary records. And what we do for them is actually we provide them with this compliance service, okay? We come, and in fact, what happens is this is very interesting. Yes, they do unannounced audits, but they will come and audit you towards the end of your sponsorship license expiration. Okay, because sponsorship license is issued for 4 years. So when they notice that you have about maybe 3 months to go, and they know that you'll be submitting your application for an extension or for the renewal of the sponsorship license, they will just show, boom, like that. So what we do is, at the beginning of the last year of your sponsorship license, we will have put things together from the beginning.
Okay.
Okay, so that when they come, you have the necessary folder to show them. And in fact, they'll ask you to give them a system, like maybe a laptop, okay? That is if you don't have all the necessary things online. So they'll be doing it, and if they want to ask a question, they ask you, or they call the employee to ask questions. So that's what happens here in the UK.
Wow, that's quite interesting compared to the kind of audits that
It is different.
We have in Nigeria. But I think there's always something to learn, because there are a few things that I've picked up from your end now with regards to having you auditing your clients before the government comes to audit. I think it's something that we can, I don't know whether Okechukwu already offers that service to any of his clients, but I think it's another work stream that we can also create from that on the basis of compliance. So based on our conversation so far, we've been talking about various audits and the various things that are hot topics in that the HR need to know. I don't know if there are any HR professionals that are on our conversation this morning. It would be great to hear from you as well if you have any questions. Chidima, I don't know if we have any questions already, so we can take them I usually like to take the questions while we are having the conversation, instead of leaving it to the end and we are not able to take all the questions. Chidima, I don't know if we have any questions.
There are no questions yet, sir.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. So let's back to you, Okechukwu. I know that last year there was, or was it 2020, there was a visa policy that was introduced. You want to tell us a bit about that visa policy?
Okay, thank you. I will speak on the new visa policy that was released sometime last year.
Yeah.
It was launched in February, and then took effect, launched February 2020, and took effect October last year. So actually it brought a number of changes to the visa regime in Nigeria, and more especially as it relates to foreign employees or expatriates working in Nigeria. Some of these issues have already addressed. So it actually creates, I'll just take some few issues which some highlights, some major highlights. First is creating 2 categories of visa. So the policy recognizes visa free and then visa mandatory. Recognize 2 categories of visa. So for a foreigner wishing to come into Nigeria, you can either fall into either of these 2, either the category of those who do not require visa or those who require visa. And then for the visa classes, unlike the 6 we had before, we now have about 79 or so different classes of visa. And another interesting thing about this new visa regime is there's now the electronic visa application and then the visa on arrival. Yes, we've had visa on arrival, but there's a little tweak to that under the new regime. So before now, for a visa on arrival, you actually need to apply before you're coming into the country. So, but currently with the new policy, you do not need a pre-approval before coming in. What you need is a valid passport and yes, and coming into the Nigerian international ports, because the visa on arrival is not given at the land borders. Some other things of interest also is the respect to the temporary work permit, which I had mentioned before. So before now, the temporary work permit gives you only a single entry into Nigeria. So the moment you leave the shores of Nigeria, you will need to reapply as an employee. The employer will need to reapply for you to come in. So under the new regime, there are 2 categories of temporary work permit which you can have now. So you could have the one that grants you short stay, which is just a single entry for about 30 days can be extended, and then there's a TWP for multiple, grants you multiple entry. So which means you can actually have a temporary work permit that allows you to travel in and out of the shores of Nigeria. And I think this is a very good development. And then for the subject to regularization visa, which we had before, is now under the new visa policy, is now known as the temporary residence visa. I think that is basically, if I may say, the things that may interest, the key things for me, which are two that will interest the HR personnel who may be on this platform, is that first, for the TWP, the good news is that unlike what we had before, you can actually have TWP now for as long as 2 years, and which also allows the employee to travel in and out of Nigeria. So that is actually a big deviation from what we had before. And again, for your businesses, tourism and business visa seminars, you can actually have your visa on arrival without need to apply previously. I mean, to get a pre-approval before coming into Nigeria. I think that is about the major issues.
Okay, thank you very much for that quick summary of the various visa categories. But the strange thing is, I keep asking everyone, and I don't know whether you've had people ask you this question, from 6 visa categories to 79 visa categories. What do you think is going to happen? What would be your advice for clients on how to deal with that now? Because it means that you now have multiple ways of entering Nigeria. What would be your advice to them?
For me, the way I look at it, yes, from 6 to 79, I think what has happened, the only difference is that we now have, I mean, the new regime recognizes different categories of people who could come in. So for instance, someone who was, before now, if you were to come in as to work with a religious institution, you ordinarily come in under the usual get expatriate quota through your TWP, sorry, the expatriate quota SCR and come in, right? So you still have to go through the same route. It's just that now you now have something that speaks to what you're coming to do. So what I think that for me is not really the 79, is more like, I wouldn't call it splitting hairs, but it's just more like changing the nomenclature. You are still coming in with the same visa. So this time around is a visa that recognizes you are coming in as a religious person. The visa that recognizes you are now coming in to do, maybe to work in some other sectors and all this. So again, always engage, get your lawyers or get your people, the lawyers, lawyers to advise you on actually the right way to come in. And something we need to emphasize, is the fact that for each of those visas, the practice before still remains the same. The only visa that still allows you to work in Nigeria is still the temporary work visa and the subject to regularization visa. That hasn't changed. So it's what it was, it's still what it is. The only difference now is that, for the TWP, you could have for a longer period and you can actually apply, you can travel in and out of the country. So again, as I said, not much has changed. It's just a change of the nomenclature and trying to get to the minute details of the different foreigners who can come into Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So Daniel, back to you. If I just get a business visa, a normal visa, a business visa, and I say I'm coming to the UK to meet with some of my clients, do I really need to get a work permit?
No, if you've got a business visa, okay, and you're coming for the purpose of meetings, okay, you don't need to get another business visa or a work permit, okay, because of course the business visa will be in form of a visiting visa, okay, but it's mainly for the purpose of maybe you're coming to deliver a lecture, you're coming to have meetings with your clients, but not for you to now stay and maybe stay for a year, all right, and be earning money in the UK.
So so you mentioned the issue of earning an income in the UK. What other things draw the line for you to determine whether you need a business visa? Because we would have HR professionals here that would have, maybe they have their head company is in the UK and whether they want to go and work there for a while or they want to go and attend meetings for a while. What do you need to draw the line to know that, oh, this is you need to definitely get a short-term work permit for this.
Okay, it will be coming to the UK to earn money. Okay, not just to come and maybe for meetings and they will go back. Okay, and if they have a UK branch, so what they would need to apply for is what we call intra-company transfer. For instance, a staff of KPMG in Nigeria, okay, can come to the UK to work for the KPMG office here in the UK. So with that, okay, they'll be applying for intra-company transfer. Okay, that will enable them. That could be issued for 3 years, could be, because the maximum period they can stay on that visa is actually 5 years within the period of 6 years. Okay, except they are on a higher salary. That's maybe a salary of about 150 something thousand pounds. That's when they can stay up to.
That per month or per year?
Per annum.
Per month, okay.
No, per month. I wish someone is earning that per month. Okay, yeah, but to answer your question, they will need to have an intercompany transfer visa for them to come into the UK. Alternatively, they can apply for the skilled work visa, okay? Because I'm assuming that the company here in the UK will already have the sponsorship license, because if they don't have the sponsorship license, they wouldn't be able to bring in anyone from outside of the UK. All right. So this is where the line is. If you are coming to the UK and you be earning money, okay, you cannot use your business visa, because your business visa is just for you to come and have meetings. You can't get paid.
Okay, that's interesting. You have to. Well, I want to talk a bit about this license. So, is there a quota system? Is there a number of people that you can bring in per company?
Okay, the regime is actually changed now. Prior to Brexit, because Brexit kind of changed the narrative of things. Okay, prior to Brexit, it's based on quota. Okay, now because Brexit has happened now, so the Home Office, they removed that cap, they removed that quota. However, the organization need to justify. Let's say you want to bring in, let's say 20 employees from Nigeria, from Ghana, from anywhere, okay? You need to provide justifiable reasons why you need that number of people, okay? At once, they may just decide to give you 5 to see if you're able to cope with that. If you notice that you can't cope with that, then you now apply for more quota, okay? So the sponsorship license, this is how it works. Once you've been given your sponsorship license, then you now give you certificate of sponsorship allocations. We call it COS. So it is that COS that you will now issue to the employee. So the employee will use that to apply for their visa. So the numbers of certificate of sponsorship that you have as an organization is dependent on what the Home Office has given you, based on the reason you gave them at the beginning, or why you need to bring in people.
Okay. That sounds it sounds really interesting. Okay, Chuku, are you still there?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. So, okay, Chuku, I also wanted to find out about issues with regards to, of course, it's the elephant in the room with graft. How do you deal with clients that report graft to you, particularly when they are dealing with the Nigerian Immigration Service? What is the advice you give to them?
Sorry, I didn't get your question. Sorry.
So with regards to bribery, and we know it's the elephant in the room, and I always like to raise the white elephant in the room, particularly when you're dealing with immigration officials. How do you advise clients to handle that? Okay, Chuku, you are on mute. We can't hear you. You are on mute.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So the point basically is the advice for everything.
There's an echo. Yeah, I think you have another system. Okay, yeah, that's fine.
So the point basically is, it's a concern, and I can tell you that from my experience, I've seen that most times you worry most when you've not done the right thing. Even though, speaking, I mean, you worry when you've not done the right thing. If you've done the right thing, there's really not much to worry about. So for most clients, we see a lot of sharp practices. So let's even come to your tax remittance, for instance. You have an expert who earns $10,000 per month, whereas your filings at the Internal Revenue Services, earns $5,000. I mean, there's a skeleton involved, you know. You try to hide that. That's something. In some cases, people, you claim to have Nigerians understudying the foreigner who is in Nigeria, when in true fact, you actually do not have these things in existence. In some cases, clients do not file their returns as at when due. I mean, these are issues for concern. And it's when you have all these concerns that really you start panicking. Yes, I know that sometimes it's just like talking of the audit, being able to separate when a person is actually working in Nigeria and when a person is actually here for a business. I know in the past, some few years back, I had a scenario where the immigration stayed and one of these, unannounced visits to one of our clients. And on bumping into the office, they met a foreigner who was sitting on a computer and was working. Was sitting on a computer. He was actually trying to read something from a desktop. They arrested him. And there, for them, they asked, okay, is this, they looked through the record and they discovered he's not on the list of the expatriates. Apparently, this guy came for a meeting, right? And he just had to sit on someone's workstation. And as long as the immigration guys were concerned, he's working in Nigeria. He can't come for a meeting and be, things very, funny like this. You see them happening. But again, as I said, if you do the right things you're supposed to do, because for that client, it was very clear. He actually came for a business, right? It's not like you step into a client, okay, you just need to sit on someone's computer, maybe check your mail, and somebody comes in and say, now, because you're sitting on someone's workstation, that means you are now a foreigner and you need a work permit to sit on a workstation. I mean, that really won't make sense. So basically, the advice for HR and for employer generally is, as much as possible, make sure you file your returns as and when you comply with the laws. And as much as you do this, there's really nothing to worry about. Again, these guys will always take advantage of you when you have things to hide. So if you've done the right thing, there's really nothing to panic about. You can always explain yourself. Again, always engage your lawyers. Thank you.
You always keep saving the best for last. I totally agree with you. If you are 100% compliant, the risk of having funny demands made at you will be very low. Although it's not like it won't exist, it would exist, but it will be very low. Daniel, you mentioned something interesting, which I want to just take you back on. You mentioned the issue of the salary band. Is there a salary requirement for a work permit application?
Yes, there is. Because if your salary or the salary that the employee will be offered, if it's not in tune with the prescribed salary by the Home Office, because the Home Office for each job title, you have the standard occupation list, which is the SOC codes. Okay, your salary must tally with that SOC code, because if it does not tally with that SOC code, it can be higher than the SOC code. Okay, the SOC code is the standard. All right, if it does not tally with that, you cannot sponsor an employee on that. Okay, yes, to answer your question, yes, you have salary bands that you must earn, and the salary is determined by what the Home Office prescribe. For instance, you can say, let's say for healthcare professionals now, let's say doctors, okay, the prescribed salary band may be, let's say, £25,000, for instance, okay? You cannot bring in someone and offer the person 20,000, even £24,000. No, you either meet that salary band or you go above it.
So, a funny question, which is of course a sidebar. I'm aware that last year there were a number of doctors that left Nigeria to work for the NHS. Do they also have to get work permits, or how does that work?
Certainly.
To work for the government?
Yes, certainly, because last year also they introduced the healthcare visa, okay, of course, in order to assist with the pandemic. Okay, so they have their own salary, but I think that is about the minimum is about £20,480. Okay, but however, before, it's not that you just carry your bag and come into the UK. No, okay, you need to do the necessary exams in Nigeria. You need to do the English language exam, and you need to do there's this
which English language? The IELTS?
IELTS, yes. Apart from that, you have another computer-based exam that you need to do. Okay, 2 exams that you need to do before coming to the UK. So once you've done that exam, it is actually after that you can apply for your visa. So you don't just carry your bag and come into the UK. I remember last day I had so many inquiries from Nigeria, especially when that category of visa was announced. People were thinking they would just come into the UK. No, you actually need either the NHS, that is the hospital here in the UK, or other private medical centers or care homes, okay? You need them to employ you. In fact, they must actually be in possession of the Home Office sponsorship license before they can bring you into the UK.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. And back to you, Okechukwu. I don't know whether you have assisted any clients that are coming for government projects. How do they do that in Nigeria? Can you just give us a brief overview?
So it depends on the nature of the project.
Okay.
It depends on the project. So interestingly, it depends on the nature of the project and what they're actually coming into. So if it's for a relief, so even good enough, the new visa policy tries to clarify and break this down. So for those who are coming for, if it's a project, maybe let's say TPP, where you have the government and the private, so the process will still be the same. Well, the general rule is partnership. Yes. So the general rule is if you are coming to work in Nigeria, definitely you need to get approval. So it's either you are coming in under the temporary work permit for a shorter period of just 3 months, which could be extended, or you are coming under the temporary work permit, which allows you multiple entry, or you are coming in under the expatriate quota slot, right, which gives you at least up to a year gap within which you can work in Nigeria. So it's still the same as it applies for others. But the only exception I may have to mention is maybe those who are coming for relief, coming to assist. So maybe people who are coming to assist, like people who are coming providing humanitarian service, right? So for those, the new visa policy allows that they can actually be given a visa on arrival. They can be given a visa on arrival, which wasn't recognized under the old regime. So as I said, generally they're going to work in Nigeria, whether for government or for anybody, you need an approval.
Okay, so another perspective that we usually see for companies is where they need a consultant to come and work for them. So this person works for another company that is not registered in Nigeria, and they need to come and provide services. And this applies in the UK as well. Daniel, how would you advise if a company needs to bring in a consultant from Nigeria to provide services in the UK, but they are not on your payroll, they are not your direct employees? What do you advise them to do in such a case?
It will depend on the duration of engagement. So
okay.
It's the duration of the engagement that will determine what sort of visa they need. Okay. If it's just for them to come in to have meeting for about 2 weeks, they don't need a work permit for that. Okay. If they're going to, let's say they're going to work on a project and the project will last for, let's say, 1 year, definitely then they need to go through the work permit visa routes. So it depends on the duration. If I'm advising a company at the moment, now let's say they want to bring in a consultant to work on a massive project and the project will last for, let's say, 2 years, definitely they need to go on the work permit.
Yeah, so would it mean that the company they are coming to work for needs to hire them, or they would need to set up an entity to be able to sponsor the work permit?
Okay, of course, I'm assuming that they already have a presence here in the UK.
So let's take it from the perspective that they don't have a presence. They're just a consultant coming to consult for a company, so that they are like a third party.
Okay. So So if they are coming into the UK as a consultant, okay, let's say KPMG in Nigeria now send someone to come and consult for another firm here in the UK. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Okay. As maybe that's okay. Right. So what they need to do is, depending on the duration of the engagement, the company, which is the client now, okay, they've got 2 options depending on the duration. Is either they absorb them in, employee, whereby they will now have to go through the necessary visa process, that is the skilled work visa process, okay? Or if it's just a short term, let's say about a month or 2 months, provided that they will not be paid directly into their account. Maybe they will pay the principal company in Nigeria. Okay, then they can come on a business visit visa.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. Well, is that the same thing with Nigeria? Okay, Chuku. I hope you got the scenario, because this is the scenario that a lot of HR professionals face.
Yes. So for someone who is coming to consult to consult here in Nigeria, no matter the period, the advice is you get at least a temporary work permit. At least you get a temporary work permit. If you're going to consult in Nigeria, at least get a temporary work permit. And good enough, the new visa policy is actually gets to the very minute of the different possible scenarios. I mean, that could bring the person into Nigeria, to include journalists and all. I mean, it gets to those very minute details. So the situation is different. For Nigeria, apart from attending for businesses, seminars, and all those, which are covered, I mean, for which you require a business visa. Once you're going to consult in Nigeria and earn fees, it's advisable you get a temporary work permit. Something maybe that, but for each temporary work permit and for every temporary work permit or STR, it's usually tied to an employer. It has to be tied to an employer who is resident here in Nigeria.
So, with regards to, I usually advise clients that wherever they are going, particularly in Nigeria, that's expat employees, that they have their, maybe it's their resident permit, the green card, they have a copy of it on them. Is that the same thing in the UK? Wherever you're going to, you must have your permit with you. I know you can't carry your passport everywhere.
Not necessarily, because with your date of birth and because you can only have your own date of birth and your name, even though there may be thousands of people bearing Kunle baby, okay, but it won't be the same date of birth, okay. Yeah. So once, let's say you are encountered by an immigration officer, they'll first ask your name and your date of birth, and once they get those two information, they'll set the system. They'll be able to tell whether you are here legally or illegally, and they will also tell the category of visa you're on. So you don't necessarily need to, you don't.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully Nigeria will get there at some point.
So that's why I'm smiling, because everything that you have said, I just keep noting it, that these are things that we have to look at the end of the day, being able to have a data bank. And I know the government, the immigration service, is currently working on that at the moment with regards to the biometrics information that they've been taking with the various expats in country. So what do you also advise clients? Okay, Chuku, this is for you. What do you advise clients with regards to monitoring the movement of your expats? How do you advise them to do that?
Within Nigeria?
Yes, within Nigeria.
The two things come up. The first is the respect to, as I did mention earlier, for every expatriate coming into Nigeria to work, someone accepts immigration responsibility, and that is the employer. So to that extent, looking at the Immigration Act, there are actually 6 penalties for where there's a breach. So where there's a breach, in most cases, you, the employer, will be responsible. And I mean, the punishment will range from fine to imprisonment and even winding up of the company. Even though I'm not aware of anything short. I know
of any of the penalties. I'm not aware of any of the penalties.
You don't want to wait till, I mean, the regulators come down on you, right? So I usually advise. I've also seen scenarios. So I mean, my advice is I've seen scenario where an expatriate comes into Nigeria, company A employs the expatriate, and the expatriate goes ahead to work for company B and C without company about it. I mean, which is an infraction. I mean, it's contrary to the law. So the law requires you have to work for XYZ company, and the company accepts responsibility. So to that extent, as an employer, these are things you need to watch out for. Then in terms of security, again, you also need to, but for me, the major concern is with respect to ensuring that you do not incur liability by reason of just bringing in the expatriate.
Okay. So you mentioned the issue of company A, and then an expat employee hired by company A, now going to work for B and C, which we know is an infraction. Is there a legal way that they can do that, move from one company to another company in Nigeria?
Well, the law, looking at the law as it is, strictly speaking, I mean, the act, I'm not aware, I mean, there's nothing, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Because even your SEPAC or your residence permit has clearly written on it your name as the expatriate and the company you have to work for. So I'm not aware of an arrangement that allows you to work for more than one company while you are still, I mean, working as an expatriate here in Nigeria. I'm not aware of such arrangement. I stand to be corrected. I'm not aware of that because I know it's tied, even the returns, everything is tied to the company that has employed you. So for a company where you see employer and employer, a foreigner doing that, I mean, the best thing to do is actually to notify the immigration office. At least that way you exculpate yourself.
Yeah, but maybe I wasn't clear enough. So if I was hired by company A and they did everything, my work permit and everything, and I came into company and I started to work for company A, after 5 years, I got an offer from company B to come and work for them. So is there any way that I can legally move from company A to company B?
I see. So that's quite interesting. For me, a number of issues come in there. I mean, for such typical scenario, a number of issues come up. So the first one is you're employed by company A and then you have an offer from company B. Again, as I said, company B giving you offer, I mean, you would have to come in under company B's expatriate quota slot. You have to come under company B's expatriate quota slot, which most likely will involve you having to go out and come back again, right? I'm not aware of any arrangement where you can just swap employment without actually having to involve the regulators. Then the second issue I see that comes in again is because I know usually for companies that involve or employ expatriates, they are usually because of dearth of manpower in those areas. And then you have some provisions, very robust provisions dealing with termination notices and anti-competition or competitive clauses and all those. So again, as an expatriate, the expatriate or whoever is involved, both the new employer also needs to watch out to be sure that you are not running foul of any of the covenants which this employee or this expatriate may be subject to under the previous engagement. But one thing you need to know for sure is that he cannot just leave company A and start working for company B. Definitely he has the employment, he needs to come in under the new employer's expatriate quota slot.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know Daniel mentioned this, that you have a 6-month window within which, if you want to move from one company to the other. Can you just expatiate a bit about that? Then we'll see after that if we have any questions from the audience.
Okay. I will just before saying going into that, I'll just build on what Okechukwu mentioned. It's quite interesting that we experience same scenarios here in the UK, whereby yes, your visa is tied to work for a particular company. Okay. However, you are allowed to do 20 hours secondary employment with another organization. You don't need a separate visa for that. Okay. There's a potential employment law issue here, okay? Because any job, the secondary job must be at the same level of your primary job, okay? If you've come into the UK as a doctor, all right, which is your primary employment, okay, you can't go and work as a shop assistant with company B. Work as a doctor with company B, okay? So, but you can do 20 hours with the company B. So the issue here now is because your employment contract will definitely have a conflict of interest clauses there, okay? If you are caught by your primary A employer that you are working somewhere else doing the same thing, there's a potential employment law issue there. However, your visa allows you or permits you to do 20 hours, okay? I should mention that. Okay, here in the UK, you're allowed to work for at least one more organization as your secondary employment. Okay, then in terms of the 60 days curtailment period I mentioned, this only happens where your visa has been curtailed by the Home Office. Okay. If your visa hasn't been curtailed by the Home Office, you can apply to another company. Okay, of course, you're going through the necessary recruitment process, and what they've offered you the employment, all you need to do is to submit a fresh application to the Home Office to bring you under the sponsorship of the new company.
Okay. Wow, that's really, really interesting. Chidima, I don't know if you have any questions. I think we have about just 15 minutes to go. If you have any questions, we would like to take it. If not, I don't know if Okechukwu and Daniel have. Yeah, go ahead, Chidima.
There are no questions
Okay.
or hands raised. Mr. Daniel, you said you had a slide to share with us.
It's quite interesting because I've more or less talked about majority of the content of my slide.
Okay, so since we don't have any questions, I'm sure we would, those in the audience, including myself, would want to learn a bit more from your slide. So if you want to go ahead and share your slide, I don't know how long it will take.
I don't think it will take up to 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. So please.
I'll just quickly run through. Yeah, 1 second. Okay, great. All right. Because I kind of look at the topic for the day, and I thought, okay, this is actually based on Nigeria, but let me just see how I can introduce the element of the UK aspect to it. Okay, so I'll be looking at the hot immigration issues faced by HR employers, the UK perspective. Okay, of course, some employers, they value workers from outside of the UK because they are bringing in fresh insights, fresh ideas, okay, into their organization. So that's why you see a lot of people employing from outside of the UK, just the way people bring in expatriates into Nigeria. It's not that the people in Nigeria cannot necessarily do that work, okay, but they want to see a fresh idea. They want to see something different that they can't necessarily get locally. Hence why people bring in employers from abroad, okay? Yes, reasons, okay, to perform jobs requiring specialized skills. For instance, maybe it's very technical. That is when you bring in people, filling vacancies of highly skilled job, okay? I put a link there because here in the UK, we have shortage occupation list, which means that in this category, we do not have enough professionals. For instance, what the UK government is suffering now is we don't really have enough health workers, that is doctors. That's why you see a lot of influx from Africa, from Asia into the UK on the medical field, okay? Then it helps to facilitate secondment from companies from outside of the UK. For instance, if KPMG has a branch in the UK and they want to second their employee from Nigeria, it will enable them to do that. Okay, I'm just going to narrow down on skilled worker route only, because that's the main route for any employer to bring in an employee to the UK. Okay, so the major requirement here is the eligibility is that the employer which the employee is coming to work for here in the UK must have the sponsorship license, that is, must be approved by the Home Office. And during my the question and answer session, I made reference to the sponsorship license. Without the sponsorship license, an employer cannot bring in an employee from outside of the UK, and the worker must have the certificate of sponsorship, okay, which will contain information about the role, the salary they are being offered. It's not actually a certificate, it's just like an electronically generated document, because that is necessary or needed for them to submit their visa application, whatever they're applying for instance, from Nigeria. Okay, the job must either be on the shortage occupation list or must be paid the minimum salary. I talked about the salary band earlier. If the salary is below the specified amount by the Home Office, the application will definitely be refused. And of course, the employee must be able to speak good English. There are several ways to meet that requirement. You can either do the IELTS test, or you do UKNARI, whereby UKNARI will convert your Nigerian degree to make sure that it actually is in the same level with a UK degree. Okay, and of course, this has given the HR or the employers some responsibilities. Here in the UK, it is a criminal offense for an employer to employ someone that does not have the necessary immigration permission to work in the UK. I talked about the fact that initially that the maximum prison sentence for that is 2 years, and you have unlimited fines. I've seen the cases whereby an employer was fined there was one particular employer that was fined about £30,000. They monthly because they employ 2 illegal workers and they charge £15,000 per employee. So it's very, very necessary for an HR person or the company to be aware of the kind of people they are working, they are employing. And of course, they also need to carry out the right to work check, okay? That is if that they have the necessary visa in place to be able to work in the UK. And of course, before coming to the UK or before offering them employment, an HR person must be able to carry out a background check regarding their criminal records, okay? Here in the UK, we have a system called the DBS, but in Nigeria, I think what will happen is for an employee to go to the police station and to get a criminal record for about 10 years. But I have my reservation regarding this based on Nigerian factor. The question is, would that record be genuine? Because you can always tip, I'm sorry to say, you can always tip a police and get a letter saying that you have a clean record, okay? And of course, the HR professional must be able to ensure that the employee has the medical checks done in the sense that they are fit for the job they are coming to do in the UK. This does not mean that they are being discriminated, let's say they are disabled, but they must be able to be fit medically to undertake that job, okay? And of course, they must be able to obtain the necessary employment reference, from their previous employers. And what also they need to do is they need to carry out online and social media checks in order to, to ascertain the lifestyle of the employee, if the person is actually a good fit to the organization. Okay, yes, that's me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Daniel, for your presentation. I don't know if Okechukwu has some final comments. I don't know if you have a question, Chidima. If not, Okechukwu, I don't know if you have any final comments or final advice that you want to give clients before, or HR professionals before we round up.
Thank you. I think the basic issue which I've emphasized over time is, as much as possible, file your returns. Make sure you comply with the laws. File the returns as and when due. An issue which I know, which has come up recently with the work at home or working, the virtual working now, with respect to foreign employees in Nigeria, especially those who have had to travel and have had to work from some other countries where they are. We are yet to see how the tax authorities will. An issue which has come up recently is with respect to tax remittance, especially the personal income taxes for these employees. Considering the tax residency here in Nigeria that requires that you pay your personal income tax to the tax authority where you, the Nigerian law requires that you pay your personal income tax to the resident in Nigeria for up to 183 days. So with the COVID-19 that has lingered for some offices, some people have had to work individually for the past 10 to up to 11 months, which is way more than 183 days. The question which has been coming up recently has been, for instance, an expatriate, maybe an American who was working in Nigeria but working with a shell and had to travel out of Nigeria and has been out of Nigeria working from US or somewhere in the US. Where would the person still be entitled to make tax remittance to maybe Lagos state government, assuming the person were resident in Lagos, or to pay to the pay down there or some other countries as the case may be. So these are actually issues that keeps coming up. I can't really give an answer to that, but it's an issue which has come up now. The rule still remains. The rule remains. The general rule here in Nigeria is that tax residency, 183 days, you have to pay tax there. Then another issue which also has come up, and I've seen with the HR. Sorry, I'm not able to prepare a solution. Again, as I said, we are waiting to see what the tax authorities will see regarding that, especially here in Nigeria. But what we've actually advised clients to do is that people have to pay tax based on where they are resident. So if you're not covered by the 183 days, so you're not mandated to pay in Nigeria. It's as clear as that. Not minding you are earning income from Nigeria. So even though the Nigerian tax law is, when you start, there are lots of issues coming up there. You're not in a tax class. But the point is, where you are resident is where you have to pay. But the second issue, which also comes up for expatriates and for HR professionals, is with respect to some other statutory filings or statutory returns which you are required to make. So there's always this question, am I mandated by law to make pension remittance for expatriates who are in Nigeria? Am I mandated by law to make a National Housing Fund remittance, ECA remittance, and all those? I mean, you see questions like this coming up. The Pension Reform Act seems to be much clear on this issue. Remittance of tax by foreigners who are resident or working in Nigeria is optional. So it's up to you to decide, for the employer, the expatriate to decide whether or not the employer would want the pension to be deducted and then remitted, I mean, here in Nigeria. But for some other statutes like the Employment Compensation Act, the National Housing Fund, and the ITF, unfortunately, the laws are not very clear on the face of it. A strict reading of the law seems to strict interpretation of the law will mean that these laws, the ITF, Industrial Training Fund, the National Housing Fund, and the Employment Employees Compensation Act will only apply to Nigerian employers and Nigerian employees, and so will not apply to expatriates, right?
Yeah, sorry, Okechukwu, to just hold that thought. We have a question. Someone wants to know, does the Nigerian immigration grant some concession for delayed returns due to the working conditions during COVID? You want to take a shot at that question?
Okay, so I think I had mentioned something about that at the beginning, that unlike the other regulators who had come up with one policy or the other, for instance, the tax authorities, we've seen circulars from them granting extension to companies. I'm not aware of that from the Nigerian Immigration Service. But from experience, I know that companies actually, even before the COVID, I've had cases of clients who have filed, who filed out of time. The main thing that the immigration office wants is to make sure that your record is as much as possible up to date. So what I will advise for such employees is, if you've not yet filed, as much as possible, you can always file your backlogs. I'm not aware of any extension granted, but you can always file your backlogs.
So quickly, because we have a very short timeline now, for those, you mentioned the example now, a hypothetical example of an American that had a Nigerian work permit, but he's currently working out of America. Does he need to renew that Nigerian work permit? Is it, what would you advise such a client?
Yeah, that is another interesting perspective to it, because yes, he's a Nigerian employee, he's working for a Nigerian employer, right? And earns salary from Nigeria here. Yes. The question would be, why does the person actually, the way I would look at it, for such scenario, why do I actually need a setback? I actually need a setback to be physically present in Nigeria. So to the extent I do not need to be physically present in Nigeria to do my work, you actually, strictly speaking, looking at the law as it is, because the whole essence of the permit is to allow you to physically come into the country and work. So to the extent that you don't require to come in physically and work in Nigeria, I'm not sure you actually need a renewal or a renewal of that. And I think this is one of the realities that COVID threw at us. Has thrown at us, and which is something we expect to continue seeing. It is where foreigners will be working in Nigeria. People will be working in one country for an employee in another country.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And on that note, I think I'll hand over to Chidinma. I think we've really delved deep into the topic. And I want to, before I hand over to Chidinma, of course, want to thank Daniel and also thank Okechukwu for their contribution. It has been a very interesting, at least I know that I've learned a lot from what Daniel has shared with us and what Okechukwu has also shared with us. So Chidinma, thank you very much. We'll hand over back to you.
Thank you very much, sir. This session has been very insightful and very educative, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Daniel Metivemu. Thank you, Mr. Okechukwu Okoro. We really appreciate all of this. And a very big thank you to our sponsors, GLS & Co. and Advocates Law Practice, for making this webinar possible. Thank you also to all the attendees for participating in today's webinar. Please note that our next webinar series will be titled Trends in Debt Recovery, including high yield and convertibles, and it's coming up on Monday, coming up this Monday, and by 1 p.m. It promises to be very informative. We look forward to engaging you all there. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.